It's Wednesday, and that means another episode of Wednesday Night Live. And tonight we have a special guest. Nancy Loucas is with us, and she is the main organizer from CAPHRA, which is the Coalition of Asian Pacific Tobacco Harm Reduction Advocates. I got it all in there.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. And back with us tonight, all the way from Australia, our new co-host is with us. Paul, welcome again. And also back tonight with us to do her CBD and I'm going to say CBD and cannabis segment. You can correct me, Madison, if that's wrong. And we have a few new tweaks to the show. One of the new segments is that we're going to do a Twitter shout out. And I think if you have a Twitter account and you want to be showcased on the show, let us know. We're going to put the just use our hashtag in your tweets. But we're going to pick people that are out there that are fighting the fight, and we're going to look for these accounts, and we're going to showcase them on the show. And I think it should be fun doing it that way. So let's get started by me saying hello to this amazing team here: Tim, Madison, Paul, and Nancy joining with us. Tim, how's your week going, buddy?
Good, actually. I think I'm over the hump. No pun intended. It is Wednesday. It is hump day. I think proverbially. How do you say that word? Proverbially.
Don't ask.
Thank you very much for my lack of Englishes. I think we're on the downslope into the weekend, and it's been good. I can't complain too much. A little tired, but I did find a really cool fancy desk tonight, so I feel
trying to pawn it on someone to get it for him.
Yeah,
Christmas.
if anybody wants to know what my Christmas list consists of, just hit me up, DM me. I'll let you know.
Yeah,
like that.
Like that.
Like that. Oh, and wait, one question, John. I appreciate the new intro. It sounded really good. But by a show of hands, how many people thought Rage Against the Machine was getting ready to go play live?
That was my beat. Hey, I did that on the.
It sounded like a Rage Against the Machine song. I'm just saying.
Well, let's just hope YouTube doesn't think it is, and I get flagged for the beat. And Madison, welcome back, Maddie. Look at the excitement of her just being back.
Oh yeah.
Totally everybody that doesn't know, Madison just had a baby, so she's tired.
Congratulations.
Yes. I mean, I am pretty excited about the exciting news for tonight, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She's so pumped.
That was just Madison's resting bitch face. That's all.
We need her to get back. We need for her to get back that enthusiasm that she used to have. That kid is just killing you, Madison. Your kid's killing you.
Yeah, her witching hour starts at basically 3 p.m. and lasts all the way up until about 30 minutes ago.
Ah, that's a piece of cake. Said by a dad.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Said by a man.
Yeah, a man. Those first 2 years go by so quick. It's like, boom, it's done. They're two. And joining us tonight all the way from New Zealand, correct, Nancy?
Yeah, Auckland, New Zealand.
Yeah,
yes.
Auckland, New Zealand is our guest. And how is your week going, Nancy?
Yeah, Paul could probably tell you. It's interesting. I mean, we are in the middle of finalizing everything for the live stream, the Scope live stream next week. So it's all the final stuff and getting it done, and then just hopefully getting it off the ground. It should be interesting.
I can't wait to talk about that. I just cannot imagine the logistics of setting up something like that. I have just this little show, and it takes me a couple days just to get this thing going.
Well, we've been working on it in the background for months.
Yeah. When you're trying to put something together that big and trying to get everybody to be on time and not go over their time and be ready to do the show it's just amazing. I couldn't do it. And
you probably could.
And Paul, hello, Paul. Grab
G'day,
a Foster's.
Oh no, don't start with this.
We need to put that threat to bed.
No more of that. No more of that.
I'm kidding. How is Paul's week going?
Just trying to keep up with the TGA here in Australia and what they keep doing, and a bit worried about this business that they're writing silly letters in the background.
Well, I guess we're going to find out about that.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Okay.
It it only needs to be said once. They're rather foolish.
Rog in the house.
Yeah, you're gonna take care of it. I know you will, Paul. So everybody's week's going okay. Mine's going okay, and not too bad. Got this show started. I'm happy to have Nancy on for the first time. So we're gonna get to know Nancy a little bit. For starters, something we love to do on this show with guests, we want to hear how you got started, your journey into vaping. How'd you get started?
Oh, wow. Okay. I smoked probably from the time I was about 11 or 12, stealing them from my parents. Yeah. And
Right.
my brother is the one who actually turned me on to it. He was living in California at the time, and he gave me one of those, cig-alike things. And I dual used for a while, and then I moved to New Zealand. And when I moved to New Zealand, I was able to, which is weird, completely transition over Vivi Novas and things like that. The reason I wanted to stop smoking, aside from the fact that it was ridiculously expensive over here in New Zealand, is also because, smoking killed my mother, and it killed her father, and it killed my father's father, my grandfathers, both my grandfathers. So I didn't want to do it to my kids, and the other aspect of it as well was my mother was on a trial back in the late 70s at the University of Pennsylvania. It was I want to say it's a Nicorette inhaler, but I don't know the actual name of it. But she was on this trial, and she stopped smoking for 12 weeks. And then the trial was shut down, and she went back to smoking. So I kind of already had an idea of the whole nicotine thing, and that was the issue. So that's when so that was the motivator for me. So that's kind of my story in short, the short version of it.
Yeah. And you've been smoke-free now for how long?
11 years, almost 12 years.
Wow. Nice. 10 for me, 7 for him.
Yeah, somewhere in the 8 range.
Morgan's an oldie. How long? And Madison, how long you been? You've been a lot past me, right? 11?
Madison's been vaping forever.
Yeah.
I can't remember anymore.
Yeah.
It's over a decade. I know that much.
Yeah.
And we want to actually let everybody know what you do for this organization, and talk a little bit about the big event that's coming up. And I have some things here to open for you. So while you're talking,
all right. Well, I think I'll start with my advocacy journey. As I said, I was a vapor in New Zealand when I first full-time, all the time vaping, and it was a very small community at that time. It was mainly underground. And there were a group of us. I was living in Wellington at the time, and the Wellington City Council wanted to ban vaping in outdoor spaces. And we got together and decided we were going to fight the council. And we lost, but we fought. And they kind of freaked them out because they weren't quite expecting, us to come after them. And that's where AVCA, which is Aotearoa Vapers Community Advocacy, with the New Zealand consumer group, came from. So I started doing that. I started in New Zealand. From there, we went to, the GFN, and we met other advocates, and we're like, wow, there's a whole bunch of other people that do the same thing we do. We had no idea, right? And from there, it sort of developed. I was one of the original people involved with INCO, and I was the original Asia Pacific Regional Coordinator. And, things were changing, and decided, okay, you know what, I can't do the INCO thing anymore, but I didn't want to give up the Asia Pacific work that I was doing, because we all are very close and we all work very closely together. Paul knows this. Yeah. So that's where CAPHRA came from. So I'm the executive coordinator for CAPHRA, and pretty much what I do is I help all the organizations, the consumer THR organizations in Asia Pacific, with their advocacy. They need help with a submission, if they need help with, writing letters, things like that. So that's basically what I do. And it's a full-time, it's a lot of work, but the proof is in the pudding. I mean, we're getting somewhere in Asia. So there you are. And that's kind of what I do at CAPHRA. Oh,
there God, you are.
That interview with Lindsay. Oh, yeah.
Lindsay there.
And we do a lot of stuff.
You do. And Scope is the big thing that's coming up right now with you guys with the broadcast. So
Scope is streaming consumers on point everywhere. And it was an idea that was developed to as a response to the fact that consumers are excluded from participating in the FCTC Conference of Parties.
Right.
I was one of the people that was actually got into the COP8 in Geneva and got thrown out. There were a few of us. And, frustration, it like you guys would feel, I guess, with the FDA and the way they're doing the things that they're doing. The same frustrations. So we needed to have a voice. So this idea had been bouncing around for probably about a year. And finally we decided, let's just do it. So with everybody, it's not just a CAPHRA thing. I don't want people to think that this is a CAPHRA thing, because it's not really a CAPHRA thing.
Right.
This is everybody. This is people from all around the world. We've got CASA involved in this, and we've got ARDT Iberoamerica, and we've got EU for SNUS, and we've got all these different consumer organizations are involved in this. And the point is to give them a voice, to be able to get out there and tell their stories and discuss the situations and the science. And it's going to be educational, but it's also going to be a really good resource, we hope, for media people who are going to get kicked out of the COP, because they kicked them out too, to be able to interact with the consumers, because that's something, we've been kept and blocked pretty much from being in the media and having the voice. So we're hoping it'll give everybody a voice.
And with this, I mean, you have a lot of U.S. Participants in this event as well from here, or is this just pretty much? Are you getting our opinion at all towards the Asian market for this type of event?
We've got CASA. They've got a section.
Okay.
Patrick from Son of Liberty Radio has a 5-day, 1-hour thing going on. And then, there'll be panelists on different panels from all over the world. So, like, for example, CAPHRA, one day we have Lindsay Stroud on. Another day we have Amanda Wheeler on. So what we tried to do is mix it all up so that there was different perspectives on every panel, at least on the CAPHRA side, so that it wasn't just an Asia thing. It was like, so this is going on in America. This is what's going on in Asia. What are the similarities? What are the differences? How can we learn from each other?
And everybody out there watching too as well. I'm posting the links to their Facebook group. They have a Facebook group, the official website, their Twitter account, and also for Scope as well. I'm adding those all into the chat as well. So if you guys want to go over there and after the show and give them a follow, I have all this opened over here, and give them a follow and pay attention to what's going on, because this is really important, and you have a lot of information that. I want you to get out there to everybody out there about what's really going on over there in Asia. You had some good news you talked about. I don't know if we could talk about that you were.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
There's a couple of good news, a couple of good things. Malaysia has decided that they are going to legalize nicotine e-liquid. It was never legal there. They've also decided they are going to come up with regulations to regulate open tank systems, in defiance of the WHO, who are recommending only closed systems. The Philippines as well, they are at the tail end of hopefully having proper legal regulations by the end of this year. So things are happening in Asia. Good things are happening in Asia, but it's been a long slog. It's taken years to get here. So it's good to see that things are coming right. But, it's not a dash. It's a marathon. And anything can go wrong at any time. So we're all just kind of like, and hoping everything happens the way we've been told it will happen.
Yeah, I don't even know how that system works. I never really paid attention to other governments, so I cannot imagine how it works there. I don't know, parliaments. What do you guys have going on over there?
Different countries. The Philippine system is very similar to the American system. They have a House of Representatives and a Senate. It's bicameral, so it's very similar to the United States. I mean, they have an FDA, which is the Philippine equivalent of the FDA.
Wow.
So the Philippines is very much the same as the United States. Malaysia operates, I think it's slightly different. Malaysia's the thing that these countries have that the United States doesn't have is the Department of Health, the Department of Finance, and the Department of Commerce are all involved in health regulation. So health, money, and business.
All together.
All together. All these departments work together. When you're trying to advocate, you've got to deal with all these people. In Thailand, for example, it's a kingdom. So not only do you have to deal with those, you also have to deal with Department of Tourism.
Yeah.
because of the things that are going on in Thailand. You know, they're losing tourism dollars.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
mm,
Is New Zealand's government basically the same as Australia's? Are you guys running on the same platform, or as far as what Australia? You know what I'm saying? Because like U.S. I know you guys are close enough to be like U.S. and Canada. Is what's going on in Australia kind of filtering its way into New Zealand, or no?
yes, but only in academia. It's hard to explain. A lot of the academics here from one university are very close with the academics that, of course, are anti in Australia. But the difference between, I think, New Zealand and Australia is that New Zealand has a goal of smoke-free 2025, less than 5% of the population smoking by 2025. Australia doesn't have that goal. And New Zealand also realizes that our indigenous population, the Maori, are the ones that are most negatively impacted by smoking and tobacco taxes. Whereas in Australia, they're not really, I don't want to be rude, but they
And
don't.
Paul don't care.
The indigenous people aren't held to this. They're considered second-class citizens in Australia. So there's a different mindset across the Tasman.
Yeah.
Politically, same situation, Parliament, MPs, all of that, but the mindset is different. Definitely. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Timmy, you're up.
So, and this is just from my experience there. Singapore, when I did travel there on multiple occasions, it was effectively non-existent. I think banned in Singapore. Like you couldn't buy vape products in stores, at least to my recollection. I never saw them once. If people had them, they were clearly doing something that I'm sure the government probably wouldn't have been happy about them doing. But have there been any strides or advancements with vaping in Singapore? Or is it just still strictly frowned upon?
Strictly, it's illegal. It'll get you fined. It could get you in jail. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big no-no in Singapore, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Which is interesting because they don't have a problem with smoking at all.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And to be fair, I mean this, and I share this experience with people when I talk about some of the trials of me being a vapor and working on an IT team where we were sent to countries like Singapore. Like I worked my first jaunt was in the Asia Pacific region. So I was in Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore equally spread out over time. And it was difficult because I had to travel into Singapore as a vapor, and I literally would have to abandon vaping because I didn't have much of a choice. Like it's not like I could just run outside and vape. You know what I mean? Even though I'm not from that country, you don't snub your nose. So those were hard times. Because you want to be smoke free, but you still sort of have a nicotine addiction, and then you go to this country and you're like, God, I don't want them to take all my stuff. So
Singapore is still like that. I will say the last time I went through Changi Airport, I actually went to the smoking section, and I was like, oh, screw this, I need to vape. And interesting, as soon as I whipped out my vape, a couple other people whipped out their vapes too. So, but I wouldn't do it on the street. I wouldn't do it walking down the street. Hell no. I wouldn't do it in Thailand either. Yeah, although, in saying that, in certain places of Thailand, you can sit there and you can vape, and it's not a problem. They don't, in Thailand, it's interesting because, you could be sitting in like downtown Thailand, and on one side of the street, the cops will give you a hard time. And mainly the only reason they're giving you a hard time is because they want money.
Right. I was going to say payout. There was a payout.
Payoff, right? And then on the other side of the street, you could be sitting in a restaurant, in a cafe, and they don't even bother you, and they're vaping. So, I mean, it's just, the rules are different everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Dynamic is strange. Yeah, I was always curious about that. I've lost touch with pretty much everybody I used to communicate with in Singapore. So I know that that some of them were interested in it, but I don't know. They're probably sneaking it in their apartments or something. Who knows?
Oh, I'm sure there's a huge black market. I'm sure of it that's available there, and it's just
don't think for a second that Singapore's squeaky clean. There's a lot of corruption going on.
There's plenty of corruption there. There's plenty of corruption there.
Yeah.
Paul,
do you have a question for Nancy?
The only question I have is, with Scope coming up, and yes, there are guests from all over the world, not only consumer advocates, but we've also got academics speaking, don't we, from different regions.
We've got people from different regions that are not just consumers, but also, researchers and doctors that are pro-THR. So we've got Colin Mendelsohn. He'll be there. Mattawa Glover will be there. We've got a lot of different people that are coming in and just to explain and talk. And there's also pre-recorded content, and a lot of that is from Clive Bates. Just like I said, my vision for this was, if we're going to do this, let's educate people. Let's, instead of pretending that we're talking to ourselves, let's set it up in such a way that anybody who tunes in will learn something, and feel included and not feel that's the whole point of this is, this is who we are. This is why we do what we do.
Yeah.
And, it's more real as opposed to the crap that you read in the newspaper or you see on television. They humanize it. We're real people.
Yeah. This is consumer based only. Consumer people only. No industry people.
No industry.
Yeah. Because I always wondered if that also applied in other countries. Like I was going to ask you a few weeks ago when you were on, Paul, how the vape business owner is looked upon when you go to these court hearings or trials that they have, or where they let you, do they treat you guys the same way they do here in the US, where you have a bias because you're an owner, you own a vape shop, you own a distributor, are they treated the same way there, or do you have a voice as an owner?
No, not really. Here in Australia, to actually get a seat at the table or to even speak to any of these government departments, it's not easy. We've got no recourse to go and fight them in a courtroom on their ideas. When they rolled out the prescription model the start of this month, there was a lot of argy-bargy going on in the background that we couldn't have any say, really. There was Senate committee hearings. There was certain guests invited to speak at these hearings, but vaping, we're all looked upon as if we're part of big tobacco here. But we've got no part of that at all. Go.
Sorry, Paul. When I made a submission, I made all the submissions to Australia, both as AVCA and as CAPHRA, and I got a questionnaire back, a 7-page questionnaire back to answer to kind of verify that I was an industry.
Okay. So you basically treat it the same way here as where you don't have a voice. You shut up and just take what's given to you.
Australia is very different to other parts of the world because our vape shops were never represented. Manufacturing was never represented. We still have to import nicotine to add to our liquids, or we have to import liquids that are already containing nicotine. And then we're already seeing the cracks in the prescription model with 110,000 doctors registered here in Australia. Yet out of that 110,000, currently there's around 354 doctors that are going to be prescribing nicotine. This is based on a vaping population of 400,000 plus.
Yeah.
The math doesn't work. That's for a start. Then the stupidity is that you have to go through all the other hoops of sprays, gums, patches, hypnotherapy, whatever else before, and it's not frontline, it's a backstory, or you ask them, and the doctor is under no rule to actually prescribe you nicotine or a vaping product. And when we're seeing now that some of the estimates, there was a discussion the other day where they're trying to tell us that it's only going to cost the vapor here in Australia to get a prescription about $12 a year. That's complete and utter bullshit. Right? Yeah. Complete and utter bullshit. Okay? So, hey, you go to the doctor. That's an $85 charge. Okay? Then you have to import your liquids, and you're only allowed a 3-month supply at a time. But what is a 3-month supply?
Right.
No one can tell me what a 3-month supply is yet.
Yeah.
We
Then-
had that in New Zealand, Paul. The
Yeah.
3-month supply is 3 liters max.
3 liter.
Well, Well, they're trying. Okay, 3 liters in Australia, that equates to a commercial quantity.
Yeah.
They won't allow that. And
but
the other thing is
that's what it was in New
nicotine
Zealand.
Caps. Yeah.
That's why you
Well-
need to move to New Zealand. Oh,
Well,
Yeah. Okay.
there's a point here. I want to bring a point up.
Yeah.
You know, when you're talking about Australia not allowing commercial and interests and so on, New Zealand wasn't like that. New Zealand actually did engage with the vendor association, and interestingly enough, in the Philippines and in Malaysia, they actually do engage with the industry. And the thing is, on that side of the world, the business people have more clout than the consumers do. A. And B, in countries like Indonesia, the consumers operate under the protection of the business people.
yeah.
So it's opposite. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
that point to make it very, very clear.
That's something I wanted to push on my Twitter account this last week. It just doesn't make sense to me that like tobacco-free California, PAVE, all these other, they never come to us. They
Yeah.
don't have. Where's our sit down? Have a you want answers to your questions? Come to the industry. Let the industry.
But they
at
don't
least-
want to.
Right. They don't want to.
They don't
'cause
want to be caught. They don't want to be, uncovered. You know what I
It's
mean?
much
'Cause they-
easier for them to believe that you are part of a big tobacco conspiracy
Right.
than to understand that there is an independent industry. And that is why the WHO and Bloomberg, oops, I said his name, Voldemort.
Yeah.
I call him Voldemort. You know, that's that whole
I like that.
narrative that they're pushing, is that we're all tobacco companies, so therefore they don't have to talk to us, which completely circumvents any mandate that they have to talk to the stakeholders, the consumers or the public.
Right.
That's why they do that.
Yeah.
It's,
Maddie, do you have a question? You're just sitting there.
I do have a question. So, since you deal with several countries, what would you say is the most progressive country with the freedom of vaping, and why are they like that versus everybody else?
I would say New Zealand. I would say because it's a small population and a very loud, vocal consumer base, and it's New Zealand's 3 degrees of separation. You know, it's such a small country that everybody knows everybody, kind of in one way or another. Then I would say the most draconian at this stage. It used to be Thailand, but I think I would actually say it's Australia now because of the medicalization and the division and the divisiveness of it. Which is sad because, I mean, Thailand may actually, there's words happening now and actions happening now that Thailand may actually go ahead and regulate. Granted, it's not going to happen for 3 to 5 years, but before it was just ban, that's it, you know, and now you've got them kind of getting to that place. In the region, India is pretty bad. India is a bit of a nightmare because, you know, they've banned everything, and the country itself, you know, it gives awards from the WHO, but they have tobacco interests.
Yeah.
You know, so there's
yeah.
all sorts of crazy shenanigans that go on in Asia Pacific. But yeah, to answer your question, New Zealand's probably the most progressive.
Timmy, you got something?
And I asked my primary question. So, this one's more for Paul because as he was saying that they were pretty much shut out. So in terms of legislation in Australia, you don't even get opportunities for open commentary period or anything like you can't speak at all. I don't know. I mean, you have no say in government whatsoever other than voting.
there was an open comment period, but it was a foregone conclusion that they were going down the prescription pathway. And they didn't actually look at a lot of the submissions. Well, it's pretty much the same as what the FDA did and the PMTA process here. A prime example is PMI came to Australia. They went through all the regulatory for the ICOS, and then the ICOS was not even allowed.
Right.
They saw it not as harm reduction at all in any way, shape or form, but it is. it does have its place in the ecosystem. Okay. But industry, I think they went about it the wrong way. That they brought in lobbyists to try and get the message through to the government. But when you have a very stubborn head of the TGA and a very stubborn health minister here, that both of them are clueless when it comes to tobacco harm reduction. They think that increasing the taxes even further is going to stamp out smoking. Quite the opposite. The black market here accounts for around somewhere between 20 and 40% of all sales underground. And that's on top of the 17 billion that the Australian government gets in tobacco tax revenue.
Right.
That's hideous amounts of money. You add another, I think it's 6 or 9 billion to that, and you have the whole Medicare budget, roughly. And when we're losing, the numbers have actually gone up from 21,000 a year dying from tobacco-related illness. They're now around 22 to 23,000. That's scary that it's going up. Under COVID, the rates of smoking went up. The overall rate, they're trying to say everywhere that it's 8%. That's complete rubbish as well. It's around 10.6% here in Australia. In lower socioeconomic and also the Indigenous community, it's upwards of 40 to 60% of people that are still smoking. We have people here on welfare that are going without food to deal with their smoking addiction. Yet we have to import everything where we can't manufacture here with nicotine. But we can manufacture with nicotine under a special license, get this, to export, and then you got to import it back in. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. No sense at all. Yep. They're getting two grabs at it, okay? The GST is paid on all hardware and liquids for that matter. When you import something, you're also now paying another 10% import tax or another GST. So it's bang, bang. They're getting two bites at the cherry. On top of that, you're paying upwards of 35 to 50 US dollars to import products directly from the United States, or for that matter, from New Zealand to Australia, it's between 25 and 50 Australian dollars. Around is it around that, Nancy?
Yeah, it's about $25 to $30. Yeah.
Just to send a parcel from New Zealand, it's a 3-hour flight. Well, it doesn't make any sense, and they're getting money on that as well because there's a GST component in freight.
Yeah, that's
they're
the
getting
same
that
thing
money
with
as
shipping.
well.
Yeah, it's the same thing with shipping from here to Canada. It's just this outrageous amount of money when you try to ship something into Canada, but yet
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but the reason they're doing that is they're trying to claw back all the revenue that they've lost from Rona. Right. And we did an analysis, and I think I shared it with you, Paul, about the money that Australia is losing because people have switched over to vaping, okay, and they're losing money there, and they're also losing money because of COVID and the businesses being closed and so on. It's similar in New Zealand, but slightly different because we were allowed to have our vape shops. We have our vape shops, so they're an essential business, so people could still get their stuff, right? But I mean, all these governments, and that's probably part of the reason why Thailand's going to legalize too, is because they see the dollar signs. Yeah. So does Malaysia. It's tax. And it as frightening or annoying as it is for somebody in the Western world to say, oh, why would you want a tax? Well, you know what? If it means a difference between having access and not having access, we'll pay the tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I always bring up Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a perfect example. They took the tax, and granted, it's expensive to vape in Philadelphia, but they have their flavors. They have their shops. Mm-hmm. I know they had to go through a little bit of hell in the beginning, but you never hear about Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, at any parts of there complaining about vaping because they said, hey, this is what you're going to do. We're going to put 45-cent tax. Mm-hmm. And you don't hear nothing because those people are like, hey, do we lose our flavors, or do we keep it and pay a little bit more? And they're paying a little bit more, a lot more, but you never hear of that state ever.
Yeah, well, I don't I don't question the fact that I think most people, because this is just from my experience from Australia. I mean, it blew my mind to see what people were paying to smoke in Australia, just cigarettes alone. And but the point is, it just sort of highlights the idea that you can raise taxes in certain places, and if people want that particular thing, they're going to consume that tax and to get what they want. Now, I think where you get the bigger argument from is some states that did levy a tax on vaping products. It was just absolute insanity, though. You're looking at like a ballooning tax over time that goes somewhere up in the neighborhoods of anywhere from 65 to 95%, and that was votable. They put it on a ballot, and the vaping community, there wasn't enough to really shout it down. You know what I mean? There were too many people, I guess, saw some value in it or saw it as a deterrent. But I don't think that you're ever going to find too many people that will shy away from a reasonable tax that they can overcome. But with the thing that's going on now with the nicotine tax, that's just going to it's going to tax people out of vaping.
The tax shouldn't be more than what it costs to buy a pack of cigarettes. It should be. I mean, that's the ridiculous part, because a lot of people, whether they're concerned about their health or not, they're still looking at the bottom line, and that's their budget. And whatever their budget dictates, that's where they're going to kind of go to. And it's kind of sad, but anybody else have any questions for Nancy? I know you had a time frame, Nancy, and I don't want to take up. I know you had an appointment.
No, it's okay. I'm glad you guys. Thank you for inviting me. I hope everybody comes, and at least it's going to be running 245. So I mean, you can come in on your time zone. Things will replay as well. It'll kind of be like the old CNN. So the stuff that had already played will play again. So and
it will be on. Will it be on the YouTube channel?
Yes, it's going to be on the YouTube
one
channel.
I listed. Okay.
Yeah, the reason we did that, we were going to originally run it through create a Facebook page and event, but Facebook is Facebook. And because it's a 245, what we're going to have to do is YouTube allows us to broadcast for 24 hours.
Right.
So we'll be broadcasting on one day. We'll start the second one and then end that one and then start the next one. And there's less of a chance of censorship or getting bounced.
Right.
Because Facebook will bounce you. Facebook is
I know all about that.
Neo-Nazi right now. But yeah, I think, if people could share it, people could come. And the other thing the final point I want to make is that we do have the capability, if we're live, we can bring people in just like you're doing here. Nice. During the CAPHRA time, we'll bring people in if they want to. And it's for you guys. This is about you guys. This isn't about us, it's about you guys. So take advantage of it.
That's right.
So I did have one question that just kind of popped up. So, I mean, obviously, for those that are in the chat that are watching the show tonight, promote Nancy's effort and spread the word about Scope to get people that may be outside of the bubble to watch the show and listen to what people who advocate for tobacco harm reduction, vaping as a component, so they understand exactly. They hear the stories, because I think people outside the bubble don't necessarily really know what the truth is. But my question is more aimed at this. To people who do advocate on this side of the pond, if you want to call it that, is there anything people from this neck of the woods can do to support the effort in Asia Pacific? Is there anything that we can do? I mean, obviously we don't reside in Australia and New Zealand and Singapore. Is there anything that we could do vocally that would support the effort?
I mean, I think what we all have to remember is, even though I'm in New Zealand with my New York accent, by the way. Thanks for
I was going to say, I hear it. I'm from South Philly, and I hear yours. So
it'll never go away. That Suffolk County will never go away. I think we have to. One of the big things we have to remember is that even though you're in the States and I'm in New Zealand and Paul's in Australia, we are all representing each other, regardless. Okay, we're not just representing ourselves; we're representing everybody else. And the way we present ourselves and the messages that we give out, we've got to remember that's going to reflect on all of us, especially in Asia. Somebody once said to me, the U.S. farts and we smell it, and it's kind of true.
Yeah.
It is kind of true. So, the high road, we all have to take the high road and support each other. The one thing I do see in the United States that's a bit disheartening is the hate of heated tobacco products. Because in Asia, especially in Japan and Korea and Hong Kong, that's the preferred method of tobacco harm reduction. And that's all they have, because nicotine vaping is illegal in those places.
Right.
Okay. Be inclusive. There are many tools in the toolbox. Accept it. It might not be your thing. It might not be your bag, but you know what? If it gets people off of the tobacco, the combustible tobacco, it's a good thing. And remember that.
I think that's the message that was lost here in the beginning. The shops fighting the websites fighting the distributors, everybody wanting this and wanting that, and not just for once just sitting down and saying, we're going to lose all this. Let's come together and come to an agreement that works good for all three of these parts of the industry, whether you're a vape shop owner, a website, or a distributor, and just somehow come to a common ground and save the industry instead of fighting each other. And now this is where we're at.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, advocacy is one thing, is hard, but when you have advocacy in this kind of a situation where each individual city and state and country and county can do what they want, it is impossible to keep track of what's going on through it, just in the United States alone, just trying to figure out, and I can just imagine you guys trying to focus on all that's going on here, knowing eventually it will work its way. What the U.S. does will work its way to your country, and trying to keep up with everything that's going here and seeing these major cities banning flavors, banning vaping altogether, adding 50-cent milliliter taxes to, and seeing the stuff just fly by our system, and knowing, hey, it could be us, and it's as smart for you guys to stay on top of it and try to get ahead of it before it does make its way to your country.
Yeah,
I applaud you. That's awesome.
Thank you, guys. I got a bail because I got meetings, but thanks, everybody.
Thank you for coming.
I'll see you later, New Yorker.
See you later, Philly. Bye, guys.
Take care, Nancy.
All right, guys. This is a new segment. It's just a couple minutes. I'm going to promote one of the things here. Going to pop it up. It's a Twitter shout out. Oh, wait, my voice doesn't work.
What do you mean your voice? We heard you.
Did you hear me?
Yeah.
I thought
you said you're.
Yeah, that's cool. I thought when I did that as well, it's like at the bumper that you don't get to hear my voice. But on this segment, we thought we would showcase a Twitter account that's out there, someone that's passionate about what's going on and is fighting a good fight. And if you're interested in being shouted out, you can tag us in your post on Twitter, and it's at show. Tim will see them. Twitter, and it's at Show Wednesday. If you want to promote you're get a shout out for yourself or somebody else that's out there that's doing a great job, we want to promote those people on the show. So like I said, just tag us in your post and direct us to your page or to someone else's page. And the guy I picked today, he actually liked a couple of my posts the other day, and when I saw his face, I said, that's the guy we have to be promote. Oh, wrong button here. Almost shared all my porn with you guys. No, I'm kidding. No. And it's I guess it's Roger is his name. It's V4U, and it's Roger. And Roger, when I read his bio, I said, this is the guy. This is the face that we need to represent this industry. A father, 37-year smoker, been quit for 7 years. Business owner. This is the face that we need for people to see out there. We want people to see that we're not 20, we're not 25. Not that it's not bad to be 20. I would love to be 25 again, but we're not all in our 20s. We're not all, just these kids. And here's a dad, 37-year smoker. So everybody go over there. Let me make sure I got his. I think I have him right here. Sorry, Maddie, your face is going to disappear. Oh, wrong one. Shout out. There it is. Roger WA 50 5139 5417. Go over there, give him a like, tell him why you're there. He has no idea we're shouting him out. Paul, would you like to say anything?
Not at the moment.
Not at the
So
moment.
it's good that you're finding people like this.
Yeah.
Instead of the regular, well, all of us that have been in the trenches for years on Twitter and all the other platforms, someone that's not very well known was a smoker and quit 7 years ago vaping, and now he's in the fight.
Yeah,
it's good to see. It's good to see.
Yeah, and that's what we want. So if you guys see someone that's is not as popular, is not as big, but he's posting every day, he's fighting a good fight, he's got a great story, and that's the guys that we want to promote on the channel. So head on over to let me get it.
He is now followed.
He is now followed. I am following. So go ahead and get over there, give him a follow. Tell him, I don't know, can you tell someone that? I guess you can.
Well, you can message them direct, or you can tweet them. You can tweet them.
You can tweet them. Yeah. And
some of them.
How you got there. And we need more people like this. Just the regular Joe. The regular Joe.
But that's where it starts. I mean, it starts with all of us. We're all pretty much regular Joes and Josephines, for lack of a better pronoun. But I think that's really the key to it. I mean, we do have people on the show that have some influence within the industry in different parts. I mean, Paul's got his business and he's connected and stuff like that, but Paul's just a person just like everybody else, I mean, there's no celebrity here that has a leg up. So it does. And that's where it starts. It starts with the average people fighting the good fight. That's the voices that need to be heard. I mean, we complain all the time about why are celebrities speaking. Funniest thing is you don't see too many real celebrities defend vaping.
Yeah, they kind of stay.
They'll defend a whole bunch of other stupid shit, but then you see them with a vape in their hand, and then you never hear one peep out of them because they're rich and they can just do whatever the fuck they want and they don't care about you.
Well, what I like about the celebrity is it's the stealth vaping that they try to. These are the most photographed people in the world. Can you imagine trying to stealth vape when you have literally 300-400 cameras around you every second of the day? There's just no way you could stealth vape.
But the irony in that, though, is but they don't want to deal with the ridicule, though. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. You'll see the picture of the CAPHRA or somebody with a vape in their hand, on the beach or whatever, and they don't want to be attacked on that front, But it's but you're vaping because why? Because you don't want to smoke anymore. So why don't you advocate instead? Why don't you make that what you view as being a negative reflection on you and turn it into a positive, and not just sort of hide it and pretend like that's not what you were fucking doing. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't get it.
There was I guess you consider him I don't know if you would want to consider him a celebrity or not, but he's on TV. There's a guy who used to be on Fox News. His name is Greg Gutfeld. He's married to a supermodel.
He's still on Fox, by the way.
And the thing is he was a huge advocate. And I'm not sure, I haven't seen him in a long time for vaping, because he was a longtime smoker and he quit. And when he started the journey, this was years ago, when he started doing it, he started promoting vaping and things like that. So there are, in some weird pockets and areas, some of them are out there actively talking about it to people about their journey with vaping and that are considered celebrities.
Yeah, I think he's since quit all of that. He's like a metalhead and all this other, there's all these things you didn't know about Greg. Anyway, the point but on his show he has another co-host named, I can't remember her last name. It's Kat something. She's a comedian. Yeah, she's a vapor too, and she openly talks about it, but she doesn't really advocate necessarily. She's like, I just want my vape and leave me alone kind of attitude. You know what I mean? So she's not the only one, but yeah, I do remember when Greg did openly advocate for it.
And I remember that episode of Rogan. All right, Maddie, you're up. You ready? I'm sorry. I'm gonna work on a new bumper for you, but this is the one I got, baby.
Legalize it.
Well, I mean, I do love my Rastafari music. I am what you would not picture. I'm not what you would picture being a pothead, but yeah.
No.
I'm the everyday. I'm the everyday
look.
Jane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
potheads come in all shapes and sizes.
Wait a minute, but they do have a look if you ask your parents.
Yeah. Your
Oh,
parents.
that's right. Yeah, it was the grit.
Tim falls into that look.
It was the look my parents wouldn't let me have.
I do fall into that category where I will sit on the couch and eat a bag of Dorito chips. So I mean that I will.
7-Eleven at midnight for a hot dog and a Slurpee.
Exactly. When you're really upset that McDonald's no longer sells stuff past midnight. All right.
What is the news? What is the news, Maddie?
I got two things. So the last time we talked about the MORE Act. Good news is the MORE Act passed.
That was the vote that you were talking about, correct?
Yes. And so basically what the MORE Act does is it does three things. The first one is marijuana and cannabis will be removed from the list of federally controlled substances.
Yay.
We're winning the war on drugs. Two, it will be funded by federal tax dollars on marijuana sales. Their main focus for taking this money is for the victims of the war on drugs, especially people who have gotten charges for marijuana and had their lives destroyed because these charges have, stopped them from getting student loans, processes of vote, whole bunch of stuff. So this is to kind of help them off of that tax. And they're basically going to have more outreach to try to help a little bit more with the communities affected by the war on drugs. But the biggest thing is the decriminalization of marijuana. It does bring an interesting part with it because CBD has been having a hard time getting FDA regulated because of the controlled substance part. And now this is really going to open it up to allow the FDA to actually fully step in and start regulating CBD and actually have some sort of precedence now because now it's deemed not a controlled substance.
So what does that mean for the average person who's got something in their pocket and I'm asking as an honest person because I don't normally walk around with anything in my pocket. If anything is in my bubble, it would just stay here in the house, and that's where it would be. So I'm not going to get. So let's say somebody's got an ounce in their pocket, and they get stopped, jaywalking. In Australia? No, not in Australia, but in America.
What state are you in?
I'm in Georgia, and what I know about Georgia I know enough to know that I do believe at the time, or at least currently, you can have a medical marijuana card, but we don't have dispensaries that I'm aware of here. So it kind of is contradictory. It's like you can have this card, but you can't get it. So
how should I say it? You're kind of running into a weird gray area because you have state rates versus federal. So you have two different sections. So the federal government can really only regulate that interstate commerce.
Okay.
So technically, if you were to sell weed in several different states, right? And you got busted, that would be a federal charge. Not really anymore, kind of deal. Like that kind of, maybe not as extreme as that, but it's really going to depend on your state rates.
So there is going to be a differential between, because I think the biggest issue that I can recall was most people are like, well, your state might have legalized it, but technically on the federal level, it's still illegal. So now it's like the federal level, it's decriminalized, but your state may not view it as a legalized substance.
But it might give more precedence for the states that are stubborn to legalize it to now have this push forward.
Get it pushed forward, yeah.
But one of the biggest things too, things that are on the controlled substance list have a really hard time being researched and studied. So there's a guy that I follow. I cannot remember off the top of my head his name, but he's really big into all different types of drugs and going to different countries and studying them and things like this. And on this list, if it's a controlled substance, if they want to study this drug for some sort of medical purpose or to figure out what exactly it's doing, whether it's natural or synthetically made, they can only get a small amount of it at a time to study. And the DEA is very heavily involved in it. Like, they have to hand it to them, inspect what they're doing with it, and then inspect afterwards. Where you remove it from the controlled substance list, now it really opens up that we're actually going to be able to start studying the medical benefits or recreational benefits of marijuana. Like, we'll actually finally be able to do the study. So, like, versus, I guess you could say, on the vaping side, right? Nicotine isn't illegal here. So they could have studied it because it's not on the controlled substance. So they can widely study whatever they want with it. It's been a problem on the cannabis side because we've had to rely on a lot of research from other countries or very slow turning research in this country. And now we'll be able to really open it up and actually see what it does. And this will help CBD because, it's a byproduct.
Right.
So that's really going to kind of help out too, especially the medical grade CBD. So it's a good thing. We're moving in the right step. Basically, prohibition for marijuana is coming to an end.
That's good.
Which leads me into my second one, which is interesting because it ties into vaping. There is an article that was released on the marijuanamoment.net site. I think I gave you the link to it, John, but I can post it. This is about teenagers and marijuana.
Yeah.
Teenagers.
I think I know a little bit about this one, but go ahead.
So there's some interesting things. They have started to see a decline since states have been legalizing marijuana, not only in teenagers, but also the group that's under the age of 25, which is really good because I remember Australia did a study several years ago on the effects of marijuana on the brain. And one of the things that they found out was if you're under the age of 25, it does have an effect on your brain. Over the age of 25, it does nothing to you. But if you're over the age of 18, the effects are kind of reversible. So it's interesting to see that it's dropping in that 25 population because that's kind of a good thing. But there were some things in this article that I found was really interesting that ties into the whole vaping industry. One of them says, indeed, this is the latest of growing body of evidence demonstrating that the legalization does not lead to an increase in youth despite prohibition arguments to the contrary. So the big, huge argument over time has been, what about the children? If you legalize it, the children are going to start doing it more. And in fact, they're seeing less.
Yes.
And that's not really a bad thing. It does make sense why, because why would somebody have to go to a local drug dealer when they can go to a dispensary nilly-willy and purchase it? And yes, they might be paying more for tax, but just like Nancy said, look at Philadelphia and places like that where they have taxes. People are willing to pay for it for product.
Right.
They found that in September, the rates of adolescent cannabis consumption does not increase after states enacted legalization for medical or recreational use. The National Institute on Drug Abuse director also conceded its recent interview that legalization has not led to an increase of youth despite her prior fears. So they're starting to rescind their arguments. A federal report released in May also challenged the prohibition narrative that state-level marijuana legalization also leads to an increased youth. So they're resending these things back. Even the Department of Education has saw no measurable differences with the legalization, so they don't see an increase. The CDC has reported amongst high schooler students there's a decline in the peak years of state legal recreation of cannabis. So prohibition makes teenagers do it.
Well, I was going to say, is it because you've effectively taken the allure / taboo away from it by legalizing? Now it's no longer this forbidden fruit that they can sneakily get their hands on.
Yeah, a little sneak.
And then it's like, oh, now it's bullshit. Pot's mainstream. We can't get high anymore. You know.
Well, Washington
That's me.
State.
Dad's doing it. Fuck that.
Yeah. They sold pot sold out.
In here, Washington State determined that the decline in youth marijuana consumption could be explained by replacing the illicit market with regulation or a loss of novelty appealing to among the youth.
Yeah. Well,
and the decline of youth cannabis consumption is legalized in states, but didn't suggest any possible explanation to it. Yeah. I mean, it is going down, and it wasn't just in the 12 to 18 group. It was everything 25 and under. Now, on the flip side, with the legalization of marijuana, they're seeing the population 25 and older is increasing, which they're like, that's the way it should work, because those are the people who want the legalization of it, the adults, and the adults are increasing with it, but the youth is going down with it. So, the system is working, allowing these laws to pass to allow them to use it. I mean, I think a part too is kids don't really fear the law.
They don't.
You think?
Do you remember ever fearing the law? I feared my dad and my mom more than I feared the law.
I don't. I feel like the kids nowadays thumb their nose up to authority a lot more than probably in our day.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think you just see it more because it's widely viral. I mean, can you imagine the stuff you did as a teenager going up on TikTok?
Oh, man, I just thank God that we didn't have cell phones when I was a kid.
All right, so I have another question that is somewhat newsworthy then, Madison. So I saw a tweet the other day from Pave, our friends over at Pave, and they wanted to gleefully report on the fact that they were seeing an increase in THC vaping in underage youth. There was some report that was out that was claiming there was an increase in usage of THC vaping. So of course they're going to take the vaping angle, and to comment on this. And I'm like, I tweeted them back. I'm like, no. You can't just put everything that is vapable underneath your umbrella. You know what I mean? You can't. But my point is you said that this report is stating that you're not seeing an increase in youth usage based on laws that are now legalizing it. Now, I can't tell you whether or not where they're seeing this is in legalized or non-legalized states, but they're now wanting to go down that path because they've attacked flavors enough that they're going after this angle now and saying that this report indicates that there's been a rise in youth usage in THC vaping. And I don't know if that's just a consequence of being kids. The other thing, my other question is, have you heard anything in the news or reports relatable to, say, the edible side of things and whether or not organizations / individuals, parents, whatever, are concerned about the edible side of the THC market? Because flavors is an issue for us, right?
I think, in all honesty, that's always been a thing. I mean, parents in general have always been concerned about cannabis use amongst everybody. I mean, even their grandmas. I mean, cannabis has always had taboo to it.
Last thing I wanted to do as a teenager was get high with my dad. I mean, if my dad is doing it, I'm going to honestly think, okay, this isn't cool anymore. Seriously. I mean, if my dad's like, hey, sit down, let's roll one up. I'm like, I think I'll go shoot some basketball, Dad. I'll see you later.
My parents would have never gone there. But my question was maybe I can find the article for you, Madison. You can read it. I'm not questioning what that report is stating. I'm just saying Pave made a big stink about the fact that there was a report out that they're showing an increase in youth usage of THC vapes. Whether or not they're strong or not, Curtis, I'm not questioning I'm not even really questioning the fact that the kids are doing it. They're just PAVE is going to take any opportunity to exploit something where they think
That's
that it's
the really hard part, though, too, because I mean, this is a study on cannabis. This is not like one section of it. It's a section of all cannabis, whether you're doing edibles, tinctures, vaping it, or just the regular old bud fashion, or even dabbing. It's doing all cannabis, all THC products.
Yeah.
In this. So that could be maybe slightly more popular amongst the teenagers versus maybe the other forms.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not enough to touch the cannabis industry. And on top of it, how do they even know? Maybe they're sitting there and don't want to admit they're vaping nicotine and they're saying they're vaping THC because it's not as taboo.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, and you can, I don't follow this news source explicitly at all. This is just, they basically shared an article that was posted on CNN with the title, with the grabber, vaping marijuana by teens doubles in the last 7 years, study says.
Yeah.
Which is really funny because the CDC says it's declining. Cannabis use is declining amongst teenagers.
Well, CNN's got another source.
So, I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, PAVE is one organization, but if the National Institute of Education and the National Institute of Drugs and all of those things are saying everything completely different.
Yes. CNN's source is corporate America.
Well, they're quoting from it was published in JAMA Pediatrics. It just says analyzed 17 studies conducted throughout Canada and the United States that involved nearly 200,000 adolescents. The study found that teens in their senior year of high school were most likely to be vaping marijuana compared to younger adolescents in 2018. For example, 1 in 3 grade 12 students reported vaping weed.
Here's the problem I have with that study. There are approximately, I think, 30 to 50 million kids in the United States alone, and they chose 200.
Yeah.
And they asked them that question. What I just gave you from the CDC and that is not from 200 people. No. That is a statistic.
200,000. 200,000.
Still, 200,000 is still nothing. And that was amongst United States and Canada.
Yeah.
And what were the percentages at? What did it go from 0.1% to 0.2%? Yes. Oh, yeah. That sounds doubling. It sounds crazy in theory.
Of course. Yeah. So it just, there's not a whole, I'd probably have to go to the actual published study and then read that stuff. Because CNN's going to, they're just going to take the most, agreed thing and they're all getting high in class. I was just curious. Had you heard that compared to the? Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna follow what the CDC says on it.
Yeah. All right. Real quick before we go into news and did you have anything you wanted to let Paul or was it Brody?
Brody's here in Australia. He owns a vape shop here in Australia, down in Tasmania.
Yeah,
and I'm going to have to hook up with him and have a nice little
that's
discussion.
What I was making sure that he knew that you were going to help him out.
Simply because Tasmania is the prime example, and it's something that I'll go on to say a little bit later.
Okay,
because
perfect.
The interview and the committee meeting, there was a couple of very good points that were brought up, and they're quite disturbing regarding Tasmania.
All right. We'll get to you then. I'll help him out after the news and advocacy with Mr. T and Cliff.
You're gosh darn right we're going to do some damn news tonight. And it's not going to be about I'm going to do the non-THC section of the news. I appreciate Madison because I don't know a lot about it.
Yeah,
I don't, and I'm going to, admittedly so. I'm not going to say that I don't touch the stuff. If it's around and somebody's got something or whatever, I might partake. I'm just saying, but I don't know anything about her journey and the advocacy portion of that that element. So I'm always going to have a million questions because I'm just probably the dude that got Chinese-eyed and sat on the couch and ate a bag of Doritos, and that was my story.
You just don't want to go to jail.
I don't want to be in the clink, man. I'm a lover, not a fighter. I just, just leave me be. So, I want to.
You should just come up to Chicago and come visit me. You won't go in the clink then. It's legal here.
Okay. Yeah, no, and I mean, we're all pretty resourceful around here. I mean, we all know how to get away with shit in Georgia. I'm just saying. So I want to flip everything on its lid tonight. Normally what I do is I give you 2 articles and then I go right into the advocacy portion of it at the end. I end with a bang, I guess. I want to start with a bang on this one. And only reason that I want to talk about this one is because there's a bit of a link here. And it would be the advocacy portion. Let me share my screen.
Share
my screen. Go. There it is. All right,
as soon as I see it.
Hold on. I don't have any audio to share, so it's silent. Silent movies for you kids tonight. It's Charlie Chaplin kind of stuff. All right, so I want to talk about this one again. And I'm not saying that out of frustration. I want to talk about this one because it's the most accessible one that, as a global community here in the United States, or at least from a national perspective, we can all equally fight. The reason why this one is important is because it came to light to me not that long ago, and maybe I misunderstood when I first read about this. I thought that this was going to be effectively a standalone bill that was introduced by the House Ways and Means Committee, and they were going to start pushing it and would just go through the regular channels. Come to find out that they, in fact, incorporated this entire proposal / bill, whatever you want to fucking call it. They hid it inside the reconciliation bill, which is that one you hear about on the news all the time, right? The $4.3 trillion reconciliation Build Back Better bill, and they buried it in there like pork, because that's what they do. They like to just throw a bunch of stuff in there that they know doesn't have a whole lot of merit standing on its own, that they're probably not going to get the votes for it or the support for it. And if they can put it in these massive bills that have more presiding issues, that, if people are willing to vote on that, this other thing will just kind of go through. So they stuck the fucker in there.
Yep.
And it's this insane nicotine tax. Now, I'm going to try to unpack a little bit of this and try to highlight why it's important, okay? Because we do have an ear here or there that you could maybe influence a little bit. But that said, it was going to be across the board. Effectively, this nicotine tax, which unfortunately was going to tax vaping the heaviest of all of the nicotine-related products. This one was going to touch cigarettes, smokeless tobacco products, cigars, cigarellos, snoozes, like the whole nine. And cigars are normally never touched, right? They're like a luxury item, and they never touch them. Anyway, this was going to be across the board. And it would more or less just tax people out of vaping. It was going to basically put a $40 tax on a 60 ml bottle of like 6 milligram e-liquid. Okay, so you're already going to pay $24 at the shop, and then they're going to throw $40 on top of that. It's going to make that bottle of juice a $60 bottle. On top of that, the people that DIY, it was like what, $5,000 in tax on like. I don't have the chart. Maybe it's still in here. I don't know. Is it relevant? It's in here. Anyway, the reason why I want to bring it up is apparently in the last few days it got yanked out. It was pulled back out of the reconciliation bill. I did not even know that it was removed. The reason why it was removed is because they revised it. Okay, mm-hmm. So they pulled it out. They weren't going to let it stand on its own, and they basically just like took cigarettes and cigarellos and the snoozes and the smokeless tobaccos like off of it, and essentially just turned it into a nicotine tax bill, which, as most people will probably understand, is us, right? I mean, we're the primary recipients of nicotine-based products, whether it's your 3 milligram or it's your 50 milligram, whatever. or you're DIYing. So they put in exemptions for cigars and cigarettes and all that stuff. They're not going to raise the taxes on that shit, right? Because why tax the shit that'll kill you? That's just stupid. We don't, we want people to die in peace, not, taxation without representation kind of shit. But they're going to tax us. All right. So here's the kicker. We still need to fight this. If you go to CASA.org and you go to the Get Involved section, which my mouse ironically is pointing right at, I didn't plan that, and you go to the national element and then you scroll down like maybe a quarter of the page. If you have not done this, I encourage you to just go follow through with this and make your voice heard and fight this. The other kicker to this is, and if you watch the news at all and you're following this bill, not just because of the nicotine tax, because if you should be following it for any reason, it should be part of that, because you are going to be paying for this reconciliation, this bill, right? Who's going to pay for this $4.3 trillion that needs to fund this? You. The vapor, right? Because if you want to still have your vape and you're willing to pay this tax, you're paying for that, okay? So, and this also kind of contradicts the whole idea that there would be no tax raises for people making less than $400,000 a year, okay? Yeah. I get it. Vaping is probably viewed as a luxury thing, a choice, right? So maybe they don't see it that way, but it does sort of it is counterintuitive to the no new taxes for anybody making less than $400,000 a year. I quite highly doubt that there are a mass majority of people in the chat and part of our little community that make over $400,000 a year. But one thing we do know is that we're all vapors in some way, shape, or form. Okay, and that even if you're on zero nic or whatever, congratulations. But my point is that you're going to be funding this bill by virtue of this nicotine tax. The other kicker is Joe Manchin, right? If everyone's watching the news, you would know that the reason why they're stumbling trying to get this bill moving forward towards a vote is they're holdouts. And there are people that are not jumping on board to sign off on this reconciliation. They're going to vote no as it currently stands. And that's detrimental to the agenda, because if they can't get the yes votes on this, then they can't move it forward. They can't get it to pass, and that's what's going to kill them, right? So Manchin was on the news today. He did a little bit with Brett Baer, and he is one of the primary holdouts, which is why there's so much focus on him. There's other ones too, but he's one that's got a lot of focus on him. He doesn't want to. He's going to vote no, and they need his vote. The Democrats need his vote. But he said in this interview that he thinks what makes absolutely no sense to him, and one thing he doesn't agree with, is the attacks on nicotine. He said that makes no sense to him whatsoever. All right? That means he's listening. That means he doesn't agree with this. He's already siding no, but you don't want him to be encouraged to just kind of be like, okay, and we'll work it out or whatever. So I'm encouraging people not only to do this on CASA, and follow through with this call to action, right? This one's important. It's national. But if you're on Twitter, and be nice, share your story. Go to Joe Manchin. It's at sen, S-E-N _ Joe Manchin. Okay, you can look him up on...
I have
okay, if you put him out there, John. But go on his page and share your story and tell him that you support him in his disagreement with this nicotine tax effort. But don't get on there and call all of his people, the people on that side of the aisle or your side of the aisle, bad names or say anything negative. Be measured, be reasonable, and just say, look, I started vaping after a 20-year smoking habit. I vape 3 milligram or 6 milligram e-liquid. If this tax passes, I won't be able to afford the tobacco harm reduction method that saved my life. You're a basic, you don't have to threaten that you're going to go back to cigarettes. That argument, I think, is a little weak sometimes because I know most of us are going to self-preserve and we're going to find a way to continue to vape. But I'm just encouraging you to support Joe Manchin. If you don't want this nicotine tax thing to go through, you either need to continue to get him to hold out because he's going to see that you support him and he sees your stories, or you want him to encourage other people within his inner circle that would have a vote at stake on this to oppose it as well. This is where you can advocate. You have an ear now. He'll be listening because he's openly stated that he's not for it. So back him up. Even if you don't give a rat's ass about a Democrat. Yeah. It doesn't matter to me. The point is this is about vaping, not about what party people stand for. Okay? It's not a threat. I'm pleading. I'm pleading. I'm begging with you. Anyway, I just think that was important. I wanted to bring that. I appreciate Liana. Liana has talked about this while we were doing other things on the show. So I appreciate Liana bringing this up. But this is an important one. Yes, be polite. Share your story. You have 280 characters now. You got to get her done in 280, man. 280. Got to get her done 280. So
it's still hard, Tim.
Yes, but that said, I think that's worthy, right? This plus speak up to Joe Manchin so he hears what you have to say. Important stuff. All right, now let's move on to the gosh darn other news. I got a couple short ones for you today. I didn't want to take too much time. I know Paul's got some stuff to talk about too, so I don't want to cut into the time too much. So, which one did I want to talk about first? We want to talk about this one. Anti-vaping scare tactics and cigarette sales. Let's talk about that. Okay, so this really wasn't, I couldn't quite tell. I grabbed this article and then I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting because they're going to talk about sort of the concept of how anti-vaping scare tactics are driving people back to smoking in general. And it's worked in a lot of cases. In many cases, for a lot of people that are fringe vapors, people that maybe were considering vaping and then they got slammed with all these Facebook articles and all this Twitter crap and the media telling them that they're going to die of wet lung and popcorn lung and they were just going to be on a ventilator from vaping, and they don't. The truth of the matter is that a lot of people don't have the wherewithal to really look into or dive into a particular subject, right? So, but I wanted to read this one, and it was more or less just sort of tethered off of the idea that people are noticing that there has been an uptick in cigarette sales, specifically within the last year. Moreover, it wasn't a ton more. It was a 0.03% or something nominal to that effect. But there are a lot of people that think that this is attributable to one of many different factors, one of which being sort of scare tactics within the vape space. Initially, people think that it's related to the COVID pandemic. They think that because people are stressed out with COVID and stuck at home, or stressing out the fact that they're going to catch it, and or socially they're stressed out, that contributed to people trying to ease stress. But you pair that up with the fact that that a lot of people also have been hearing a lot of stuff in the news, and that they think that vaping has some significant health risks associated to it. Like, I'm sure I've talked to some people in the chat tonight. We were talking about it briefly, and you get I forget the username. He was kind of early on in the chat. He'll pop back up again. I'm sure he will. But I remember being like outside a club one night, and I'm sitting there, and this is somebody I know. This isn't like just some rando stranger that like walked up to me. This is a person I know and his wife. And I was outside vaping, and they walked up to me, and they kind of both just stared me straight in the face. He's got a cigarette in his hand. He's got a cigarette, and his wife too. And he's like, that, and you know how people point at you with a cigarette, right? They kind of do like the two-fingered point, so the cigarette is going, east-west, but they're trying to point at you north to south. And he's like, that stuff's going to rot your teeth out. Trying to basically claim that I'm going to lose all my teeth, like to vaping, and it's like, and it's that level of misinformation that goes on that leads people to believe that vaping effectively is worse for you than smoking, and we know that that's not true. So there's that. So you get all this misinformation that's out there, or this stuff that's telephone operated, right? The whole thing about vaping and losing your teeth has nothing to do with the fact that it's going to rot your teeth out because there's sugar in it. There were studies done about people who vape, and they say that there are these bacterial sort of flare-ups in the mouth. It causes the mouth to sort of hyper react to the vape that's going in your mouth, and they don't know that there's any long-term damage from that bacterial bloom or that kind of hyperactivity. They don't know that it's going to affect it. They say it's the same shit all the time. It could, it might, it may, it can, whatever, but it doesn't necessarily mean that something is going to happen, right? So they take that, and then all of a sudden it's like, you better not vape, it's going to rot your teeth, so that's kind of where that goes. So there's the scare tactics there. On top of that, the Valley outbreak scared the shit out of a lot of people. A lot of people who are watching the news and hearing just the term vape. And I say it all the time. And if you want to talk about vaping and people want to talk about the lung illnesses, and now the big one is the fungal lung crap. That's like the one everybody like, well, you haven't heard of fungal lung injury or some crap like that. They're making I'll have to find an article on it. Somebody tried to play that fungal card on me the other day, and I'm like, you can't go there, bro. I'm like, let's talk before you want to go with that one. Trying to convince me that it's worse than cancer and faster than cancer. And I said, okay, then explain to me why out of 13 million people, you don't see vapors dropping like flies left and right from this fast-spreading fungal disease that's apparently just rampant within vapes, right? After a while, he just shut up. He wouldn't talk back to me because he had no argument. Of course, he did go full ego on me, and he's like, I called him ignorant. He's like, don't call me ignorant, Timmy. He said, I've got a 3-digit IQ, and I'm hyper aware. And I was like, bro, you just went there. Like, you went there. You had to go full narcissistic ego on me. You gaslight me now? Like, what's going on? Anyway, he didn't comment any further. I asked him questions. He answered my questions with questions. I told him that even further highlights your ignorance by answering my question with another question. So anyway, point is, when you want to talk about vaping is a verb, right? It's all relevant to what it is that you're vaping that might cause the E-Valley, right? If I said to you, all diabetics are dying from injecting, are you going to... That doesn't mean that the insulin is killing them. Maybe they're heroin addicts too, or they're into fentanyl. We don't know. I'm just saying, if you're injecting the wrong shit or you're doing stuff that you're not supposed to be doing, they're going to scare you with the term vaping. They'll say that. Okay, so you have all those on top of the fact that the flavor bans and increased taxes could be pushing people away from vaping. So there's all these little fights that we have to fight. It's all wrapped up into one. But you just need to take that information that you know, and you need to speak clearly. There are going to be people who are nervous and scared about vaping, and they may react adversely to you in terms of what their belief system is and what they think about it. You're not going to win all these wars, but you might win a few. So what I'm saying is, go ahead and feel free to speak back on those kinds of things. I was going to read Michelle Minton's quote, but I'm going to skip that for now, only because it's just going to take a little bit too long on that particular article. This was a short article. If y'all look at my notes were really short on that one. Hold on, I think my mic came unplugged. But all right, moving along.
There you are.
Did anybody say anything? Because I couldn't hear anybody probably for the last 10 minutes. So if anybody had any groundbreaking commentary on that particular article, I encourage you to pipe in. Did I cover all the bases on that one?
I think the interesting part about these articles and these things that people brought up, especially if we talked about teeth and lung issues and stuff like that, is they keep forgetting to mention that people who are vaping are prior smokers. And smoking has an unbelievable amounts of damage to one's teeth. And they were talking about these germs. One of the biggest things smokers suffer from is gingivitis.
Yeah, gingivitis.
So are they studying these people as soon as they're coming off the icky stickies and going right to vaping? I mean, they're going to have still long-term health effects from the smoking, depending on how long they smoked. And the lung issues, they're still going to have lung issues.
Of course,
from coming up from it.
They're gonna have carryover from the years of smoking and the damage that was done to the philia and all that other stuff. No, the thing with the vaping and the mouth thing was like basically like a gotcha headline about how they called it like they called it like slime. That I think that I'll find the article for you, Madison, but it had something to do. They aimed it down the road of like vapors have mouth slime or something like that, and basically it just when a vapor your mouth, because a lot of people MTL vape, not a lot of people not everyone DTL vapes. And I think what they're saying is once the vapor enters into your mouth, that your mouth sort of has this hyper reaction to the vapor inside your mouth, and then it starts to produce this sort of kind of like bacterial protective slime. And so they kind of made it sound like, you were, some zombie, and fucking slime's just falling out of your face and stuff. So
if you're a vapor, the biggest problem you might run into is cotton mouth, which is actually very, very bad for your teeth, can produce significant amounts of germ in your teeth. And also it can cause issues with you losing your teeth. But the easy fix to that is just drink more water.
Yeah. And that's true. And I think that it was just, to me, it was another one of those articles that, they wanted to take something that they didn't really have a whole lot of foolproof evidence on as being detrimental. They just thought that this bacterial bloom could be something that could cause some attack on your teeth and maybe affect the enamels and the gum line and stuff like that. But they didn't have any proof to definitively say that that's what was going to happen, because smokers are impacted by a similar reaction too. So it's not just vapors exclusively. They just wanted to find something to bash vaping about. But if you care, I'll find you the article. It had something to do with calling people who vape with slime mouth or something. I don't remember the exact title. All right, so let's move on to this one. This one's a little interesting. I'd be curious to get some of Paul's commentary on this one. Yeah, you can't do that anymore, Curtis. People I don't want your COVID. I don't want your COVID. Yeah, I don't care if it is cherry lemonade. I don't want your COVID. Anyway, England is getting ready to update their policy in the country to potentially. And when I read this comment, I'm like, "Oh, wait, hold the phone. I thought Australia beat you to the punch." There is an acute difference in what this all means. And that England could effectively become the first country to prescribe vaping as a valid medication, effectively. So like anything else that you would go to the doctor for and you get your Wellbutrin or you get your amoxicillin or whatever, vaping devices or certain products would be approved as actual medication. Therefore, doctors could prescribe vaping products to you based on whatever diagnosis they would require. And it would more or less be based on people who were smokers who wanted to quit. They would go to a doctor and say, "Hey, doc, I want to quit. What's some ways I can do that?" I don't know if they would go through the order of events like Paul mentioned in Australia, where you would have to go through the whole NRD and other medication process. However, these would just be treated as legitimate medications. They would be regulated as such. Doesn't mean that you can't go and still get your vape and vape if you want to. Doesn't mean everybody in the UK now is going to have to go get a prescription to go get their vape stuff. It just means that if you're a smoker and you don't know how to quit, or you're looking for a doctor to help you to quit, you would then go to the doctor and he could potentially go, "Hey, vaping works really, really well. Let's prescribe you a vape." So that said, so this is based on MHRA, that's their short name. The UK's Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency is publishing an updated guidance which could allow e-cigarette products to be prescribed for those who want to stop smoking. And what's interesting here, though, is that anybody who wants to get their products approved can step up. You don't have to be part of the tobacco industry to get your products approved. Does that mean that you will get approved? Maybe not. I mean, you might have some hurdles to climb, or at least some steep hurdles. But the thought process is that people who are inside the tobacco industry there in the UK might be able to get over those regulations a little bit easier than, say, some guy who created a mod, you know, and they stand behind it, you know, but they're an independent. They may not have the money or whatever they need to get it approved. Doesn't mean that it might not be approved. They just might not meet all the criteria. Manufacturers of e-cigarette products can now approach the MHRA with their products, and they will go through the same regulatory approval process as other medicines available in the UK. If approved, it would mean England would be the first country in the world to prescribe e-cigarettes licensed as a medical product. And I did mention the difference in Australia. Australia is different in that consumers must obtain a script or a prescription to legally access nicotine products as well as liquid nicotine. However, those products are currently not approved under the Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods. So that's the difference, right? So these are not medicinally approved products. It just means that in order to get it, you got to go to a doctor, get a prescription to get it. It's just a legal, it's just a taxation and a legal hurdle to get to the shit that you need. So that's the difference. Public health chairs with the University of Edinburgh believe this is excellent news, as there's already evidence e-cigarettes are a great smoking cessation tool. Well, we know how that works in the UK. They fully back it and support it. But they note that only up to 1 in 3 smokers in the United Kingdom has not tried these products. So they have a similar hurdle to climb in the UK, in the sense that people are hesitant to try vaping because of reports they read or things they see in social media, or the people that are anti-vape that are trying to kind of spook them a little bit. So they think that by getting these products approved as legitimate medicines, that people will find themselves having more confidence in those products, and they'll be more willing to try them, and hence get off of smoking altogether. The approval of these products as medicines may encourage, I just said that, so I'm not going to say it twice. You heard me the first time. Medicinally licensed e-cigarettes would have to pass pretty strenuous safety checks, and maybe more than some other medicines. The NHS notes that while e-cigarettes do not contain tar or carbon monoxide, the liquid vapor contains some potentially harmful chemicals also known in cigarette smoke, but at much lower levels. Robert West, professor of health psychology and the Department of Behavioral Science, God, this is a mouthful. Mr. Robert West is a professor of health psychology at the Department of Behavioral Science and Health at University College London. Say that 10 times fast. No. Said that the regulatory hurdles may be too steep to overcome for some manufacturers independent of the tobacco industry. This could result in the tobacco company's e-cigarettes, which people view as less effective, right, will be the ones that get prescribed or the ones that get approved, and it'll be the ones that are far more effective by the independents that can't get through the regulatory process, that will not get out into the medicinal market in that way, which is what they would aspire to do. So my takeaway there was, I just think that's another step forward in the UK's desire to appropriately guide smokers to more effective harm reduction methods. And it just frustrates me that the US, I wish we could view it the same. We already did the advocacy, because I already lectured everybody at the front end of all this. So with that, my friends, that is your news for this week. We'll be back again next week with Mo. Back to you, John, in the studio.
Thank you, Tim. And I need to work on a bumper for Mr. Paul, but we're going to work on that together. I'm still working on Tim's new one. I got to get into some kind of creative mode with you two on what you want, so I can put it all together. Metal heads. And Paul wants like floating beers and horses and
really
alligators.
No, we got crocodiles, no gators.
Couldn't we do like was it the theme song for Bluey for him then?
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
We'll work on it. We'll get creative together, Paul. We'll figure something out for you.
There's already 2 hardware companies that have approached the UK government. Aspire and Inican have both got their feet at the table for that one. That's brilliant. There's a few liquid manufacturers out of the US now that, yes, they do have to go to 10 ml bottles, and there is a 20 milligram nic cap, but that also looks to be being repealed when they look at changing the TPD again. But doing it this way, Batman, going to like legitimizing it through a doctor in the UK, where their smoking rate is falling faster than quite a lot of other countries around the world. They're doing it the right way. We got our prescription model arsed out. They're not looking at what the UK is doing here. They just want to do, we'll do it this way. We'll try it, and it's already failing. But we'll see. I hope that the UK can break ground on this and move forward, and other countries actually pick up on it and actually run with it. If that happens, this could be the injection that vaping has needed for the last 5 to 10 years. That's my take on it. It'd be very different, but we'll see what happens.
So what is going on in your neck of the woods, Paul?
Oh, there's something that I'd like John to pull up on the screen, because I'm not playing screen. I'm not playing screen sharing at the moment.
Share that porn with us, Paul.
No, I've thrown it in the private chat there for you.
That's for the after show.
Yeah. Oh, knock it off. Here we go. The after show. There's a big party going on in the background.
We should mess with our Tim. You're muted, Tim. Tim, mute it. Man.
I'm sorry. I was saying. I thought he was saying stop, because I said, "Hey, Batman," and then I didn't realize I was muted. Yeah. Anyway, and then I was never mind.
Maybe
never mind.
One of these weeks,
carry on.
We'll do it a Wednesday Night Live SMR version. We'll all just talk real quiet and be real nice to us.
We can do that.
Hold on, we can't have a vape show without this.
Anyway, that's enough of our ASMR.
All right, Paul, hit us. You got it shared, Paul?
Yeah, I put it in the private chat there.
Okay, perfect.
Share that link for me, please, if you would.
Pull it up, Mr. Lab Works. Gotcha.
This is how stupid the Australian government and the TGA. For the people that don't know who the TGA are, they are the equivalent of the FDA in Australia. They're known as the Therapeutic Goods Administration. Now, these are the guys that have been trying. They're the ones that brought in the prescription model. They thought it was the best idea. Now, what they've gone and done, quite silly, right, is we've got a warning already about consumers and vaping products. Now, to be aware of counterfeit products. I think most of us by now know how to pick a fake. No two ways on that one. But it's where it gets even crazier is when we scroll down to the warning to advertisers. Okay? Now, if you remove the word nicotine from an advertisement for a nicotine vaping product, you are likely supplying a counterfeit therapeutic good, which is a criminal offence under Section 42E of the Therapeutic Goods Act. And the Act goes back to 1989, so they need to update that for a start. And is now but it's punishable by a 7-year sentence.
What?
Dude, serious shit.
This is where it gets really weird and wacky.
Right. Paul, just for shits and giggles, how many years do you get for shooting somebody in Australia?
Oh, they took all our guns away 2 years ago.
Yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Yeah. No, they fuck shit up everywhere here.
Yeah.
But
wow.
this is
So are they claiming it to be false advertising by removing nicotine? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
yes. Okay, but it it makes me wonder, right?
Yeah.
This was brought out all of a sudden, bang, right? And this is a month after the prescription model's been rolled out. But it also warns you about creating a new website or changing platforms in an attempt to circumvent your legal obligations.
Yeah.
And going back to Brody being a vape shop owner down in Tasmania, this is where it gets even crazier. That pharmacies that would like to be able to supply nicotine vaping products must apply for a tobacco retailer's license.
Oh wow.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
You're meant to make it easier. You're a pharmacist. You do understand how chemicals work. You
Yeah.
understand how medicines work. But now you need a tobacco retailer's license for a pharmacy. If this isn't backwards, upside down, and not well thought out,
Yeah.
I think we've got a few problems. And by the way, anyone that doesn't know the fines relating to nicotine vaping products in Australia, if you don't have a prescription, you get caught importing, for a single person, it's up to $220,000. Okay,
I just got
that's
that laying
your
around,
fine,
Paul.
right?
I just got that laying around, Paul.
Yeah, not a problem. Then, if you're a company importing and distributing, it's $1 million. Right? That's the next one. Then, oh yeah, you can read the consumer information and everything on this, but
Yeah.
this is
I shared the
complete
link
nut
too,
rubbish.
guys. If you want to
Yeah.
go and read that yourself,
Complete
I
nut of
shared it.
rubbish.
Now, how's
And
this
if you're
apply
a
to?
corporation
Yeah.
and you're caught importing, it's up to $11 million they're going to fine you.
Gee, many Christmas.
Now that
It's
first
ridiculous.
That first part, Paul. So if I had a DIY bottle
Yes.
and it wasn't marked, it wasn't labeled, and
Yep.
for shits and giggles, I'm selling it to my buddy,
Yep.
I fall into that category.
Yep.
Oh shit! All right,
That'll be 220,000, please.
Yep.
it pesos.
I don't know what they're going to use here soon, but
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Do you think that this is just positioning to try to scare people? So if they just make it so outrageous, you just won't do it?
Yeah.
Yep, correct. 100%. 100% on the money, Tim. Because fake products, we know that there was a lot of fake liquids actually coming into Australia that were being manufactured. Some of them were being manufactured in Malaysia for a start, and some of the Asian countries, all the ones that had copyright
Yeah.
or copyright infringements on their labeling. That's one thing. But it's absolutely ridiculous for them to go and do this, right? And potentially, while enabling current smokers to access these products for smoking cessation with appropriate medical device. You must have medical advice to even want to vape. Really? Why? It was a consumer product to start with,
Right.
and it should have always been that way.
Yeah.
And when you get on warning for importers and suppliers,
Yeah.
and if you also put with, and since when is it a wrapper? I didn't think we're eating bags of chips here. It's not a wrapper.
Yeah.
It's a label.
A label.
So
yeah.
that's another thing. Like they've
You have
made
the
the
same
pathways.
policy.
What's that?
You have the same policy where it has to be written in a certain font size. Yeah, it's just like us, right? It's the same thing. Okay. So it has to be some sort of size and fonts. It has to be in an eye view of the label itself. And
Correct.
Yeah.
This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is a
right.
harmful substance or an addictive substance.
No, you can't say it.
And it's a poison. That's the
And
other
it's a
thing.
poison. It's a poison.
That's the other thing that you need to put on there as well. But keep out of reach of children also has to be put on the bottle.
Yeah.
We all know, regarding like childproof containers and things like that, but there's no real guidance from the TGA of what a childproof container actually is. We all know what it is.
Yeah.
And sure, but if I was to present this to you with no label, even though it's in a chubby gorilla, not allowed to do that. Not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Can't do it because you're actually flaunting the law.
Yep.
And we now know that out of the 110,000 doctors here, only 354 have gone through their training through the TGA. And recently I joined in on two discussions, one with the New Zealand counterparts and one with the UK counterparts. All of them have said it's quite silly what you're doing in Australia. They're governing how all this plays out. Now, there should be figures out by now on how many prescriptions have actually been written. But get this, that figure isn't going to be available to the TGA until June of next year. So we have to wait all this period of time. It should be monthly reporting or bi-monthly reporting by doctors on how many scripts are actually, being written. But they're also now saying, what you can get through the pharmacies are pretty much pod systems. There's no open systems or liquids as such yet. Personal importation scheme is liquid nicotine with a cap of 100 milligram per milliliter. That's for a start. They're trying now to limit what you can bring in for a 3-month period. And liquid nicotine, I don't know how much they're trying to cap it at. As for products that have salt-based nic in it, that's capped at 50 milligrams. So we've got that as well. But the AMA and the RACGP, what they are is the Australian Medical Association and the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners, they're stating that there should be a nicotine cap now of 20 milligrams on these products that have been through the pharmacies. We just laughed at that. And the UK experts said, no, there shouldn't be a cap. We found now that in the UK, this 20 milligram cap is actually hindering the chances of people giving up from combustibles, especially if you're a heavy smoker.
Right.
And I totally agree with it.
Yep.
Now, the last thing that's anywhere on the TGA website whatsoever is synthetic nicotine. They don't have anything about it. The only one is what is actually used in NRT products, and that's the GSK products, nicotine polyacrylics. That's the only one listed. So if, for argument's sake, I was to bring in an S-isomer synthetic, they've got no jurisdiction over it. So that's the point that we're going to argue. And as for doing a submission to the TGA, Skerritt said the other day, Professor Skerritt, he's the head of the TGA, he said that they've been in discussions with various companies for submissions. And then he was asked by one of the politicians, how many companies? Oh, we've been dealing with many of them. Really? How many exactly? Oh, 2 or 3. Excuse me? Really? Plenty of companies, and that's only 2 or 3. Right? So we've already seen the monopoly type situation there. Then we get told after discussions with the TGA that you have to go away for 6 months and then you have to provide a clinical trial of your products. And I'm like, okay, so we've given you all the data.
Yeah.
All of the data. But no. And how we're going backwards and forwards with the TGA is hard.
Yeah.
5 days for an answer on a topic question. Oh, the best part is if you have any queries or you need to ask a question, we have a 1-800 number. what the really a 1-800 number to ask a really important question
Yeah.
on your policy that you wrote. What 1-800? Who am I calling?
And I bet
That-
it's directed to India. The call's
I-
picked up in
I-
India.
But we don't know where the calls are. But
Yeah.
I've been phoning the TGA and in meetings with them trying to get some form of clarity on their policy. It's non-existent.
Yeah. Has these new laws and has this deterred from new manufacturers popping up in our industry, or is it just kind of just steadily come to a halt and just died off now? Have you seen any new companies coming out?
Liquid manufacturers?
Yeah, manufacturers, vape
no.
shops, stuff like that. None of that stuff.
There's a couple of vape shops opening, but we also have a company over in New Zealand wanting to open 15 new shops, and they're called Show Shop.
It hasn't deterred them from wanting to get into that industry at all. These laws.
No,
but
not
it's
at all.
become a rich man's game. Is that what?
Yeah, in that respect, yes, but they want it fully medicalized.
Yeah.
They want this to be equivalent
They want
to
you
a
to go
medicine.
to a doctor. They want you to go to a doctor, make an appointment with a doctor, get a prescription for nicotine. And that's how it's going to be in Australia. And that you don't see any change happening.
We're fighting it right now. Put it that way. We want this thrown out.
Yeah.
We want this. We would like to see vape shops openly being able to sell nicotine-based products.
Right.
Going to a pharmacist, and this was a point brought up by a friend of mine the other day, is the pharmacist going to stand there or talk to you for over an hour explaining how to use the device and what device is actually the best for you? Or are they just going to hand over a little pod system and say, off you go, have fun?
Yeah. But you were saying that people have to go through the whole entire sort of minutia of trying to get to that point, right? So, I mean, what do you have to do? Just go get the NRT and then call them back and go, "This ain't working, doc." Like,
correct. Yeah.
And so they'll throw everything at the wall before they'll go to a vaping device.
But they're also asking for, in no uncertain terms, and this is what the AMA wants, is that you have to set an end date of when you give up vaping as well. Well, that's not your doctor's fucking.
I was going to say that shouldn't be.
That.
They
that's
can't.
That's up to the individual.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous. But that's how stupid Australia has gotten now, and it's just getting worse and worse.
I'm still trying to rack my brain over the oxymoron of the pharmacy has to get a tobacco license, because I've never been to Australia, so I have no idea. But I'm guessing your pharmacy carries over-the-counter nicotine gum, lozenges, and patches?
Yep.
So do you need a prescription in Australia to get nicotine lozenges, gums, and patches?
No, that's at the store. You can just walk into a store and pick up.
I know here. I'm not sure down there. So why are they viewing this as a tobacco product when there's no tobacco involved, just like nicotine lozenges and patches? I mean, it's the same process. I mean, they all have end dates to them, right? Because, there's a box. It's got instructions on it. You've smoked X amount. You start at this level of patch and work your way down. I mean, why are they not even taking that model then for the patches to vaping?
No. Well, they were on the prescription type system until a few years ago, and then they became over the counter. They became a consumer product, and everyone says that pharma has no fingers in the pie here in Australia. That's complete not a bullshit. Their lobbying groups, J&J, Pfizer, and GSK, are all in the background. And by the way, the smoking cessation thing the other night that was on was actually sponsored by Johnson & Johnson. That's a conflict of interest. they were trying to explain vaping to people. Oh, here we go. This is going to be hilarious. And then they said, "Oh, but it's all about the kids and flavors." I said, "Oh, here we go. Slippery slope now, because you should only use tobacco flavored products when you're trying to give up." And I'm like, really? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Freedom of choice is the best thing. I'm vaping a 5-pawn Symmetry 6. I've got a kiwi strawberry lemonade. I've got some other fruity one in there. I've got a peanut butter cookie and another one of mine.
Yeah.
I like flavors.
Yeah. You want flavors.
I'm over 50. I can have flavors.
Sure.
All right, guys, we need to cut the show here. I got to run. I have to take care of something. And I want to thank Nancy for joining us all the way from New Zealand. And Paul, thank you for being here with us. Even though it's what time is it in Australia?
It's 2 p.m.
2
Half
p.m.
past the ruse here.
Yeah, he's the next day.
It's
He's already the next day. He's in the future.
2 p.m. on Thursday, the 4th of November.
Yeah, you got to give me the lotto numbers for today. All right, Paul and Tim and Madison, thank you for joining us today. And we're out of here. We'll see everybody next Wednesday. Same time, same channel, same place. Peace.